I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now. I'm here with Kayla Caruana. We're doing our Tesla show, and we got a special guest today. We got Josh Duncan, our news director, and he's here because he's a Tesla newbie. He just got married and then took a Tesla on his honeymoon.
Thank you. Yeah, we did all that. End of May, start of June. It was, on the island. We rented one.
Ooh, you were a little nervous when you asked me, like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to charge it?
A little nervous. I mean, it's different, obviously, as you know. You can't just stop at a gas station. You can't just do this.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a bit of anxiety around just hoping, especially on the island. We went to Tofino.
Tell us the route. Where did you go?
So we flew to Nanaimo. We got the car at the airport, the Tesla, and then stayed there for the night and then drove to Tofino.
You got a Model 3?
Yes.
And so in Tofino, did you have any problems?
So I guess I'll go more specific with our route. So Nanaimo, stayed there for the night. We went and then charged in Port Alberni.
Okay, yeah.
Where there are superchargers just right off the highway.
Beautiful town, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice town for sure. And there's a supercharger thing where there's a Walmart and a No Frills and a bunch of stores. So we kind of stopped there for 20, 30 minutes and charged it up from 55, 60, just to 80. We kind of wanted to get the experience of charging like early on without having to panic at 20%. So.
It's not like a phone battery, so you're kind of like getting used to it. You're like, 100%. How far can I go?
Yeah. So we did that and then drove from Port Alberni to Tofino. And then, the charge lasted us, pretty much the whole time in Tofino.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. That's good to know.
We couldn't find any superchargers in Tofino. There was actually 2 bays for superchargers at the Wickenish Inn.
Okay.
And we went there one day to be like, oh, let's just charge up now. And they were both in use, so we didn't do that. But we ended up going for dinner on our last night in Ucluelet. So that's, a 30, 40-minute drive down island. So we went there and we found a charger there, just a normal one. And we were at dinner for 3-4 hours and we just left it plugged in.
And that worked?
And it charged back up to... it was like 50 to 80% again, and then that took us all the way back to Nanaimo, and we charged it again in Nanaimo, because if you return it under 7%, they charge you $35, and if you return it under 20%, it's like $100 or something.
Okay.
So that's like the old gas thing too, the same thing, right?
Yeah,
same as the gas thing, they're just like, they just want to catch you on being forgetful.
Yeah, pretty much.
Makes sense.
The superchargers... it's very cool. Like it charges real quick. And we realized, and I think you told me this before we left, but it's kind of like a phone where when you're charging from say 20 to 80%, it's real quick. And then once you get up there, you don't really need to charge up to 100 because it takes a lot longer. So with that in mind.
So you're prioritizing.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. And the superchargers were super quick.
And then what do you think of the car now that the battery stuff's out of the way? What do you think of the car?
So the car, it's different for sure. The car itself...
what do you drive now, I guess?
I drive a 2024 Kia Seltos, which I just got earlier this year. Okay. My 09 Mazda 3 died a horrible death. In that cold snap we got. And then before that, my first ever car was a 99 Honda CR-V.
Okay. So this is very different.
Very different. The thing whips. It goes quick.
They're fast.
Very fast. It was very fun for driving that highway up to Tofino where you can kind of, safely pass people on these shorter passing zones and feel very comfortable and very safe about it. So
confident.
That was nice. It gets up to speed real quick. The one thing when we first got it and we're going from the airport to our hotel in downtown Nanaimo is obviously the gas pedal. It's so different than a gas car. And if you barely have to use the brake.
Make yourself nauseous.
No, you don't.
At all.
It's kind of like a golf cart.
Yeah.
In a way.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. So, that was very interesting. It didn't take long to get used to, but for that first little quick highway drive from the airport to downtown, it was like, what is happening here?
Did you get any complaints from the bride? Just like, you're making me sick?
No. She was trying to figure out all the technology.
Making this screen.
She was preoccupied. But, the highway stuff I just talked about, like passing, the gas pedal and brake pedal, in that sense, it was really cool on that kind of highway where it's, very windy.
It is windy. Yeah.
You don't have to go back and forth with the brake and gas all the time. You can just let up on the gas a little and it kind of slows up nicely.
You down.
After a while, you get used to just feathering the gas too instead of right? So
there was a time that Elon was like saying that he didn't even want to have a brake
pedal?
pedal. Do you remember that?
Well, I never really ever used it. Right?
Me either.
I
But
think I've used it once for
you
gear.
have to have one, like in emergency
it's probably a
situations.
safety
But
thing.
yeah, he's like, you don't even need it.
Yeah. But no, you really, I mean, you can definitely, especially on highway drives and stuff, like you really don't need it most of the time.
It's nice because it really lets you adjust your speed and driving to Calgary lots, like on those short passing, you really have the power to kind of like
Zip by.
quickly, right?
People, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot safer because you don't have to worry about like kind of winding something up, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Did
quick.
it take getting used to using the gear?
A
I don't know
little
what to
bit.
call
And
that,
there was
but
one
the
time
gear shift.
actually on the drive home, because I kept catching myself almost trying to put the wipers on. And I was
Instead?
like, nope, that's the gear shift.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't touch that while I'm going
Yeah.
80, 100 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
And then one time on the drive home, I accidentally did do it, and it kind of did something a little weird, but it was fine.
It's like, hey, you can't
oh my
change
God.
that. We're driving.
Yeah. So it wasn't a big
Yeah.
deal, but I had to catch myself on that. Yeah, it definitely took a little.
How'd you
Yeah.
find the display screen and that? Like, oh, look, there's a lot of stuff going on in there.
Yeah, so that's what I would definitely say that. And I think if you own one, you know, you'll get used to it.
You're
I'm
playing
sure,
around.
but it was a little. I don't know if frustrating is the right word. It wasn't frustrating, but there's a lot that's in there, like turning the windshield wipers on or changing the speed. You know, you have to go in and.
You have to find the menus, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
had Brittany to do that, you know, for me, a lot of that stuff, especially
Makes
because we
sense.
didn't know where it was. But I feel like, especially earlier in your Tesla career, is if you're driving alone, it feels maybe a little
Did you connect
dangerous
your
that you're kind
music?
of going through. Yeah,
Right.
we connected to music, and
Yeah.
that was all great. But
There's like certain presets that you can have, but you don't know that when you're
Oh,
renting the
is
car,
there? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you can preset like some of the two little knobs. You can preset them. You know, if you're clicking left or right, you can have them do certain things. But the problem is when you're renting it, you don't really,
you just don't know.
and you don't
Yeah.
have them preset. So
Yeah.
I
so
could totally
was,
see
that
that.
was a bit of an adventure for sure.
Yeah.
And I definitely am one who likes having, you know, the dials for heat and all this. And
Quick.
I mean, I
You don't have
think,
to
again,
think.
if I had a Tesla, I'm sure I'd get used to it and it would become the
You
new
can
norm,
use the
but-
voice command button, push it, and just say set
Oh,
temperature to 28.
Oh, really?
You could do everything with.
Should have
with
told
the
them
voice
that
We
command.
before.
didn't. Yeah, come on.
Did you?
That wasn't in the 50-page document. you gave
Yeah.
me.
You guys didn't take the dog along though,
No, we didn't.
because it
have
has
a
dog mode too.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah,
Oh,
so you
like
can
we're- yeah,
you can
actually,
leave
I
the
did
dog
know
in
that.
the cabin, and then it has a screen that displays and says.
Yeah,
so
well,
like,
that's obviously nice for, you know, hot Okanagan summer days.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have to worry about that. I had heard that before, though. So
but you can
that's a nice feature.
also keep the cabin, like say if you're out at the beach and it's hot, you can either like an hour before you go back or 10 minutes, or you can leave the cabin at a constant temperature when you're out of the vehicle.
Yeah, or like change it from your phone, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
and
you can
like
do all that
and
from your
stuff.
phone. Did you download an app to use it, or?
How
did you do that?
He sent me a link to download the app.
Oh, right, I did too,
He was
yeah.
very excited about that. But we didn't really like.
It's getting you prepared.
Yeah, right. I figured we'd have to use it to like charge, and obviously you don't really.
Yeah,
so we
okay.
didn't really use the app. At first, we kind of did like looking for where charging stations
Right,
were and all
yeah.
that stuff, but for the most part, we didn't really need the app. But again, I imagine if you own the car, you
You
would
didn't use it a lot.
you would use it a lot. So
Did you like the navigation? The style of the navigation?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think all that stuff is laid out really nicely, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big screen, it's great. I just feel I'm more of a traditionalist where I kind of like the buttons and knobs, but again, I think if I had a Tesla, I would get used to
Get
it, and
used to
I would learn to really love that. But I'm not as techy as Jim when it comes to, you know, really embracing that stuff. So
For sure.
it wasn't a huge thing for me, but it was very cool to experience. And
So
I mean, the
what was your
touchscreen's
cost? Like for you typically bought fuel, so you would have charged a couple times, and
Yeah, so renting a car, it was Monday night to Saturday. So it was 5 nights of a rental, 5 days.
Mhm.
The cheapest gas car, like a, you know, Hyundai Elantra or whatever it was just over $400 for the trip, and the Tesla was around half of that, maybe a little
What?
over half. It was
Like
like 230 to 250.
wow, I thought it would be more expensive.
I thought too. I was
Yeah,
thinking 6, and then you're like, it's half.
Yeah, and we discussed this before I left, and I think that's just because they probably don't have as much interest in, you know, again, people
People
are
are more
anxious
scared of it,
about,
though,
especially on the island. Maybe it's more expensive elsewhere, but you know, people just want to keep it simple and know that they know what to expect with a gas car.
Makes
and
sense.
Maybe they just have less rental inquiries for the Teslas because of that, but I don't know for sure. And then charging, yeah, we spent 35 total bucks charging.
We'll spend a lot more on gas. That's for
We
sure.
spent a lot more on gas. Nanaimo to Tofino, down to Ucluelet, back to Tofino, back to Nanaimo, probably like 400 or 500 clicks. I could be a little off on that, but
well, especially if you're like
like
taking
2
your
tanks of
time
gas.
and stopping off at all of the little scenic routes and those type. So it sounds like
Yeah, I stopped a couple places and we drove around Tofino, obviously.
Yeah.
But the main parts of the trip were the drive out and then the one night down to
Super
Ucluelet.
quiet too, eh? Like as you're driving, like
Very quiet. Yeah.
like
Ucluelet and Tofino are really quiet too.
yeah.
Yeah, so they liked it there, yeah.
Yeah.
as you're driving along, it's like there's not a lot of road noise, especially if you're used to, your vehicle all the time making a little bit of like. Some people get used to the feel of the sound of the exhaust, kind of like how fast they're going.
Actually, I will say on that note, with the new Kia I have, it was, when we first test drove it, it was so much quieter than we thought. So compared to the 2009 Mazda I had. So I'm getting a little more used to the quieter vehicles, but obviously the electric vehicles are on another level when it comes to that.
Yeah, I've pulled up behind people when they're walking and they haven't noticed that I'm back there.
Just
yeah.
the tire noise.
Yeah, I'm like, what do I do? Do I just wait or do I honk? I don't know. Yeah.
So
but,
would you rent it again or consider buying one in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would always consider buying it. It's a little just out of my price range right now. I'm not saying it's expensive.
They just lowered it.
They just lowered it again.
Yeah, there you go. But
Who knows?
I just bought a pretty low end, Kia. That's the reality for me right now. But if I was in a better spot money wise in the future, I would definitely consider a Tesla. I mean, I assume it'll only get more convenient. Not that it wasn't, but it'll only get more convenient as they start to add more chargers and more of these. And so in the future, we would definitely rent one again, especially if it was cheaper.
And now you're used to it.
Yeah.
So were you I guess reluctant in the beginning and now it's a little bit more on your radar? Like you would do it again because it was easier than you thought, or what's the consensus?
I guess we were a little reluctant. I think it was like we were excited and Jim kind of assured me about a couple things, and
that's nice.
There was definitely a bit of just anxiety with like where to find chargers in the island, especially in Tofino, just like knowing there aren't really supercharger, more than a couple out there yet. But I think there was more excitement than reluctance and just a little bit of anxiety that came with it. Like hopefully everything goes smooth because I mean, I've been driving gas cars for 15 years. I know where gas stations are. They're all over the place. Like it's
don't
quick
have
to
to
fill
think.
up. But everything went really smoothly. So
did Britt drive as well, or
no? She didn't. She was a passenger princess for this trip.
That's my favorite type of ride in a vehicle.
She enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And cabin comforts, kind of like seats and all that.
Yeah. We didn't have to sit in the back, obviously, but nice trunk space. We didn't even open the.
You didn't even try the front out?
We didn't, but comfy car.
You don't really
cozy.
need it.
I mean, lots of room, obviously, when you take out some of the stuff the gas cars have, or cars with more dials and more glove box, this and that. Like
because there's a trunk and then a trunk under the trunk and
sub trunk.
Right?
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Oh, because there's not a lot of other stuff in there. There's no drive.
Yeah, right.
You
got all this room to but
put stuff.
It was spacious. It was nice. It was comfortable for a long drive. So. Yeah.
I was just thinking about Tofino in general, and I think about was there more Teslas on the road? Like, were you seeing more vehicles like that, or were you kind of one of the only ones?
Definitely saw a few in Tofino. I mean, it wasn't something I was really looking, and I see Teslas, all over just in general. So it wasn't something that really stood out. There was a ton or not a lot, but there was
I'm just wondering of popularity wise.
There's still definitely a lot of, hit the bands and this and that. But there's a few in Tofino for sure.
Makes sense.
And other electric cars, like I said, when we went to the Wickenish Inn, and obviously that's a high-end hotel on the
beautiful.
Beach there. But there's, both of them are in use. And when we went downtown to try to use the slow charger before we planned on going to Ucluelet, it was in use for a non-Tesla electric vehicle. So they're out there for sure.
Yeah.
Lots in Kelowna, I've noticed in the last little while. I see more and more.
Not Tesla chargers?
Just Teslas.
Teslas.
It seems like there's a lot more coming out, right? So,
for sure.
People are getting used to the idea.
And just a piece of information for everybody: the BC government, or the Clean BC, dropped the qualifying vehicles for the $4,000 credit in British Columbia down to $50,000 or less.
Mm-hmm. $49,990.
So Tesla dropped the price of the Model 3 rear-wheel drive to $49,990, just $10 under.
$10.
There you go.
And he did that, I think the next day, right? I mean, they're very responsive to those kind of things, right?
They seem to be, yeah. Well, and then also when people are kind of wanting to move more towards that vehicle, or electric vehicles in general, just being kind of top top of mind, I guess, for people. It's part of the strategy.
Yeah. No,
Could talk
I
to
mean,
the marketing people about that.
it's I get that a lot of people are kind of like, I get lots of weird questions all the time, and I get that people are tentative, but I think the thing to do is, if you have a friend or something that has one, just ask to
Test it out.
take
Or go on a
a try.
current taxi.
Or
Yeah, there
if
you
it's
go.
$250 for a week, I mean, that's a pretty good deal
go
to
rent
rent
one
one,
for
right?
Drive
Go
around,
test it out
Yeah.
on your honeymoon.
There you go.
That's right. No better time.
No better
Well,
time.
they're also opening up the Tesla dealership here in a couple of years.
They are,
right?
yeah.
So
I think
soon enough,
they're
there'll be
breaking
a-
ground already. So
Yeah,
it's supposed to be one of the coolest dealerships too. That's what they say. I don't
They
know.
have a test drive coming here too.
Yeah, in July, first part of
14th?
July
Yeah.
or middle of July, there
Yeah,
is a
mid-July.
test drive thing. If you have questions of that, you can reach out to us and we'll give you the information on that. So if you're interested in test driving Tesla, I think they're bringing their whole lineup.
And when I did that, that's when I got my first Tesla, and they had a lower interest rate for that whole
just like
event,
kind of an
just for the
incentive
event.
event. Oh, yeah, cool.
So when I did the math backwards, and I checked later, it was definitely, you couldn't get it anywhere else except for that event. So that might be interesting.
And then there's there you go. I like that. A little finance humor.
Yeah. That was funny to a very small group of people, but
There is
love that.
there is an incentive right now too. If you happen to have a Tesla right now and you have full self-drive, I think until the end of August you can transfer your full self-drive to the new vehicle.
yeah, that's what we were talking about before you got here. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So with
All
that
these
said,
things.
I think we'll wrap this one up.
Thanks for
Josh.
coming.
Thanks for having
For
me on.
sharing your
Appreciate
experience.
it.
There you go.
Long-awaited appearance.
And again, thanks, Kayla.
Thanks
And
for
thank
having
you
me.
for watching Kelowna Now.